Hello, welcome to Jackrabbit Journal, and I feel like we should take a moment of silence for the SDSU basketball teams. That'd probably be a little over the top, but it's always hard to come to grips with the end of anything. In this case, two great basketball seasons. The Jackrabbit women tugging on our heartstrings, getting us all riled up with a win in the opening round of the NCAA Tournament, beating Miami in what was technically an upset, but not really. The Jacks earning just the second tournament win ever in the Division I history of the program, and then agonizingly close to doing it again in the second round against one of the most famous women's programs in the country on their home floor, because the top four seeds get that luxury in the women's tournament, and the Jacks had it. They had it right up until it slipped away in the final minute. Our David Brown was there for the whole thing, the joy of the win against Miami and the heartache of the loss to Stanford.
The legendary LA Dodgers announcer Vin Scully once said, "Losing hurts more than winning feels good." And you can't help but think the South Dakota State Jackrabbit women's basketball team feels that way right now as they lose a heartbreaker 66-65 to the Stanford Cardinal in the second round of the NCAA Tournament.
This is a tough loss for us, just having that on the line, knowing that we could be the first Jackrabbit team to make it to the Sweet 16, I think, pumped us up a lot, and before the game in the locker room, we were just all jacked and just fired up and ready to go. And, yeah, we played really good, but, they made runs and we made runs. And sometimes, like in games like this, it just comes down to the little plays, a rebound here or there, getting a stop on defense, finishing a play. It's just plays like that at the end, it comes down to those little things in the game.
The critical situation came late. The Jacks were up 65-63 with less than 20 seconds to go, but Stanford got a driving layup on a questionable foul call, and they converted the three-point play to take a one-point lead.
I'd say we just had a little breakdown there. We let her drive in, and we got a bad foul there, and she made an and one, and credit to her. She made a great layup and a free throw that won them the game.
So with 8 seconds left, SDSU had one more chance to try and win the game. It was a play designed to get Macy Miller open for a shot, but she passed it up once, Ellie Thompson passed it up once, and Macy's final desperation shot was blocked at the buzzer.
We ran a play jersey to come off a screen, and I passed it to Ellie, and time was running down, so I thought I might as well just drive in and try to get foul and contact, but it just didn't happen.
A little bit more of some of that high ball screen we were in earlier in the game throughout the end of the third, into the fourth. I really thought Mace probably had a look and then gave it back to Ellie. Ellie had a good look and maybe needed to move away from that pass, but it's just a pressure situation that's really tough, and ended up with probably a tougher shot than maybe we had to take right there.
It's hard to criticize any portion of the Jacks game. They gave it their all. They were gritty. They were tough throughout. But one key stat leaps off the page. Madison Giebert, the freshman shooting sensation, just 1 of 4 from the field, and she didn't even attempt a single three-pointer.
Yeah, I think they just really put a lot of pressure on her. They made the decision that they weren't going to let her get a shot off, and that's okay too. As she felt that pressure, it also opened up some other things. We had some penetration lanes because of it. Ellie was able, I think, to get to the basket a few times when Maddie was in her side and they wouldn't help. So, one door closes, other things open. So that it didn't disappoint me. Teams can take things away if they choose to. I thought we took some things away too, but it also opened up some other things that I think created some offense for some of our players.
When the South Dakota State men's team lost to North Dakota State in the Summit League Championship last year, head coach Scott Nagy talked about how because his team was so invested in the game, so invested in the season, that's why it felt so bad. That's why the hurt felt so deep. And Aaron Johnston said it felt the same way for the Jackrabbit women.
Probably be quite a while before I go back and watch this, but when you lose, you just have there'll just be those little levels of regret. Should we have? What about this? Maybe this is a better call in that situation. And that's the hardest part, I think, as a coach, and I would say probably even players too, is just that regret that comes with these kind of losses. That's the part that's hard to get past.
South Dakota State graduates only 2 seniors, Gabby Bover and Chloe Korneman, who were both bench players this season. So the entire starting 5 will be back in 2016-2017, along with some key additions. And that has Carrie Young, Macy Miller, and Aaron Johnston excited about what's to come.
Right now it's an awful feeling, but we got to keep our head held high because of what we've accomplished. And I wouldn't trade these girls for anything, and I'm excited for next year.
I feel really good about the future. I'm not quite in the future right now. I'm still dwelling on the past. So yeah, looking at the roster, it's a really good roster, really talented. It's young. We've got great players that will join us next year. Yep, the future is very, very bright. And you heard the comments from Carrie and Macy. I think they sense that as players too, and they're really excited about it.
All in all, a very successful season for the South Dakota State women's basketball team. As you saw, Carrie Young, Macy Miller, and even Aaron Johnston were pretty optimistic for next season, even in the immediate aftermath of the 1-point loss to Stanford. But now the goal for next year is crystal clear.
We're a young team, and that's something we're looking forward to next year is, to even be better than we were this year and, to get farther than we were this year and, to make it to the Sweet 16 next year. That's something that we're going to have our standard higher than we did this year.
That's really going to motivate us. Right now, like I said, it's an awful feeling, and we have 5 of us coming back, and, coming into this tournament, we're going to have veterans, and we're going to know what it feels like to play every game and how it feels when you lose, and we're excited for next year.
We've had just an unbelievable following over the years, and it's a special group. I always use the phrase shared experiences, and that's really what this is all about in college athletics. It's not my thing, it's not our team's thing. We're representing a university here, a state, and all of these shared experiences really connect people in a way that you just wouldn't get if you're taking a vacation. And sometimes these shared experiences just punch you right in the gut like this one does. And we're going to share this, and if any of you want my feeling, come and take it, because I'd like to get rid of some of it. But it's an amazing thing in athletics to have those kind of shared experiences, and we're lucky to have a wonderful group behind us.
So the Jacks get their second NCAA tournament win with a first-round victory over the University of Miami 74-71, and then lose a heartbreaker to Stanford 66-65. With the Jackrabbits in Palo Alto, California, I'm David Brown.
So we are left with wait until next year, and next year is going to be a problem for other teams. A look ahead up next to what lies ahead for the SDSU women.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back. The Jackrabbit women's basketball team says goodbye to 2 seniors, and they were great, both coming off the bench for the most part this year. Gabby Bover and Chloe Korneman combined for 8 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3 steals, and 4 assists per game this year. They were the team's energy boost and 2 of their best defenders, and they, of course, will be greatly missed. But the Jacks are well positioned to come back and maybe even be better next year. Leading scorer Macy Miller will be a junior. Leading rebounder and shot blocker Clarissa Ober will be a senior. Leading three-point shooter Maddie Giebert will just be a sophomore. Carrie Young averaged 10 points and 5 rebounds a game this year. She was the team's best free throw shooter. She will be back as a senior. Ellie Thompson averaged 10 points, 7 rebounds a game this year. She will be back as a junior. And Lexi Alexander played 17 minutes in that last game against Stanford in the tournament. She will be back as a junior. So that is 6 of the first 8 players coming back. That is 85% of the scoring, 69% of the rebounding coming back next season. And then Sid Palmer, Jess Miras, Tiff Flotta, and Ina Viso with minutes off the bench this year for the Jacks. Annabelle Grettinger is a 5'10" guard who sat out as a redshirt this year. Tanoa Wade is a 6'2" center who sat out this year after transferring from St. John's University, the one in New York, not the one in Minnesota, and she could be very good, could push Ober and Thompson to be in the starting lineup. And the 2 incoming freshmen signed so far are Megan Boltzma, a 6'3" post player from Plankinton, South Dakota, and Sydney Tracy, a 6' forward from St. Michael, Minnesota. And that's what's coming back for the Jackrabbit women next season. Up next, the Jackrabbit men taking on Maryland in the NCAA Tournament. We will take a look at it and live it through the eyes of 2 guys who have been pillars of the program all season.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
Well, the SDSU men's basketball team is now qualified for the NCAA tournament 3 times as a Division I program. There was the 8-point loss to Baylor in 2012, the 15-point loss to Michigan in 2013, and the 5-point loss this year to Maryland, arguably the best team the Jackrabbits have ever played. It was a team that was ranked number 2 in the country just 5 weeks ago, and the Jacks almost took them down. DeAndre Parks, a great game to finish out his college career. He and George Marshall get the Jacks within 2 points in the final minute after being behind by 18 in the second half. A gutty, gritty, and oh-so-close performance for South Dakota State. Here is a look back over about a 28-hour period on Thursday and Friday, taking a look at this tournament appearance through the eyes of two guys who end up playing a big part in the outcome. Well, it is Friday morning, still 2.5 hours before Maryland and South Dakota State tip it off. And who's going to win this game? Who knows? Maryland very well should. They're a heavy favorite. South Dakota State could, a very capable underdog. And it will come down to all of those things that the coaches talk about, defense and rebounding and loose balls and desire. It will depend a lot on that, of course. And for South Dakota State, it will depend a lot on two guys, a senior point guard and a freshman forward. George Marshall and Mike Dahm have become the guys you recognize for the Jacks this year. Kids from opposite ends of the physical and the geographic and the social spectrums. One, a quiet but bouncy little guy from Chicago, back in the NCAA Tournament for the first time since 3 years ago when he was a redshirt freshman coming off the bench at the University of Wisconsin. The other, a lanky, confident kid from Kimball, Nebraska, in the big dance for the first time in his first season as a collegiate basketball player. And both understandably short and to the point in the press room the day before the biggest ball game of their lives.
Just to be able to, just know that all the hard work and the goal that we set at the beginning of the year, we achieved that goal, and to be here just means a lot.
The court stays the same size, the venues just get bigger, so that's something I look at. It's not really a change for me, and I know I have a great leadership with the seniors who keep me calm-headed through the whole thing.
We're not necessarily looking at it as, we're 12 and the 5, and, those upsets always happen, but we know what we're capable of and going into this game, so we're just looking at the game itself, and we know what we're capable of doing.
It'll be a tough matchup. Diamond's a terrific player, and it'll be tough to guard him down low, and I'll just have to make sure I work extra hard on the defensive end, guarding him and just trying to keep him out of the post and make the catches tough for him.
Well, turns out Dahm makes it tough for the Maryland big men as well. Driving and dunking on backup center DeMonte Dodd, and then Dahm hits a deep three from the corner. But the Jacks shoot 27% in the first half. They don't even shoot a free throw in the first half and find themselves down by 12 at halftime. They fall behind by 18 in the second half, and then Marshall gets hot with a three and a three-point play to make it a 9-point game. Another Marshall three to make it a 5-point game with 3 minutes left. 3 free throws by Marshall to make it a 2-point game with a minute to go. But you know how it ends. Marshall fouls out, Maryland hangs on, and just like that, the Jacks are done for this season. Marshall done for his college career, and he and Dahm are left to wonder what could have been.
We really just buckled down and got a string of stops together. We were getting stops, and obviously we played a lot better offensively in the second half. And it was just a combination of those two things that led to that comeback.
We had that set in our mind. We can win this game no matter what, no matter who we play. And we had that set in our mind that we weren't going to go out losing. Just didn't happen.
I watched him do it twice in our tournament, and that's just what we talked about. We've been here, we know we can do it. Let's face it, those weren't Maryland, and we knew it would be a tough task. But the one thing we knew we couldn't do was just keep trading baskets with them. And I couldn't believe. They hit some tough shots. At the end of shot clocks, and Carter hit 2 tough shots at the end of shot clocks that really hurt us. One running hook, and so you got to tip your hat if they make those shots, because I thought our defense was really pretty good tonight. But if you're going to make a comeback, it has to start in the defensive end, not the offensive end. And yeah, you have to make shots, which we didn't in the first half. But we scrapped. Our kids did everything they could possibly do to win that basketball game.
Well, George Marshall played 54 games in his career for South Dakota State. The Jacks won 40 of those. Marshall is part of a senior class with Parks and Biddle and Moffitt and Corey Jacobson that didn't lose a game at home for 2 years. They went 25-0 at Frost Arena. And Marshall ends up tied with Parks for second on the team in scoring this year, both at 14.9 a game. Right behind Mike Dahm, who ends up at 15.2 per game. Dahm scored in double figures in the last 21 games of the season. He sets a new freshman scoring record with 518 points. Now, there were two other really good tidbits from Coach Nagy in the postgame. There was, of course, a lot of conversation about how the Jacks played their last possession, down by 3, still had a timeout to use, but didn't use it. Here is Coach talking about that.
If I had the final play over, I would have called a timeout. I mean, we go through these things. We know what play we're running. We knew what to do. But we just, we had personnel in there that we don't normally have in there in those situations. And so, if looking back on it, I would have been way better off for me to call a timeout and make sure we knew what to do. I just, I get in that point and I worry about them changing defenses or doing something and giving them an opportunity. So if we know what we're supposed to do, then we do it. But we just, we just had some personnel in there that aren't normally in there.
Well, that's because George Marshall had fouled out with 43 seconds to play. It's just the second time this season that Marshall has fouled out. And that is one of the other really interesting things from Coach Nagy in the postgame, the question of a couple of calls by the officials late in the game that went against the Jacks.
They explained to us from the beginning of the year that they were going to call it tight. And, every coach is going to agree and disagree. And, those calls certainly weren't why we lost the game. And so, of all the people in that gym, that's the last job I'd want is to be an official. And I think they do a great job. And so, I think that we know they're going to call it close. If guys are going to come off the screen, keep your hands off of them. And don't count on it just being this time of game. They're not supposed to call a foul. They call it the way it's supposed to be called through the whole game. So I didn't have any problem with them.
Well, we can talk about the calls and the plays and all of that until the Jacks tip it off again next season. And speaking of, up next, you'll look ahead to next year for the SDSU men.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
The Jackrabbit men's basketball team says goodbye to 5 seniors. And if that sounds like a lot, it is. The Jacks will graduate more than half of their scoring, almost 2/3 of their assists from this year. DeAndre Parks ends up with more than 2,000 points in his career when you combine his junior college output with his 2 seasons at South Dakota State. George Marshall had those 2 28-point games at home and scored in double figures in every Summit League game during the regular season. Jake Biddle scored 25 in that win at Minnesota this year. He was the team's best defender and most ferocious rebounder. Keaton Moffitt was steady all year long. Started 11 games, was second on the team in assist-to-turnover ratio, and helped raise the team GPA by a notch or 2. And Corey Jacobson, a really good player, never got much time, but he was the best teammate that anybody could ask for. So that's the bad news. And here's the good news. Plenty to look forward to. Mike Daum is back. He will be a sophomore, led the team in scoring and rebounds, and was named first team All-Summit League. Reed Tellehusen will be a junior. He put up 9 points, 5 boards a game, and was second on the team to George Marshall in 3-point makes this season. Ian Tyson will be a junior. Big Cat started all 34 games, averaged 6 points and 4 rebounds. Tevin King played in every game this year as a freshman. Connor Devine would be the Jacks' only senior next year if he stays around. Lane Severin got some good minutes this year. He'll be a junior next season. And we think Skylar Flatten will be back after sitting out all this year with an injury. There are 2 freshmen that redshirted this year that all the coaches and everybody else thinks are going to be very good. Cole Gentry at point guard, a push it down the floor and pass first kind of player. And Adam Dykman, a 6'7" kid who can really get off the ground and would give the Jacks a true big forward. The only incoming freshman the Jacks have signed so far is Loudon Love Volbrecht. He's from Geneva, Illinois. He is 6'10" and 300 pounds. Had offers to play big-time football as a lineman, but he wants to play hoops, and will give the Jacks a monster inside if he ends up playing as a true freshman. And one other piece the Jacks are looking for is a shooting guard who would possibly, most likely, come through the junior college ranks. So there you go. Can't wait for next season for the SDSU men. Well, up next, we will take a look over the shoulder in a video farewell to the season that was in Jackrabbit basketball.
Jackrabbit Journal on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back, and let's look back now at some of the plays of the year in Jackrabbit men's and women's basketball. Well, our thanks to the coaches and the players and the administrators and all the sports information peeps at South Dakota State. Thank you. We will see you this fall with football on Jackrabbit Journal.